Hello, fourth grade champions. We're continuing today with our book, Out of My Shell. We're at an interesting point where our main character, without her mother's permission, decided to take a ride to the pier. And she kind of made a couple of missteps while she was taking the trolley. So let's see what happens. We're going to start with the next to last sentence on page 60. I hope you're joining along with your book. While I waited, I opened the photo app on my phone again. A text from Mom popped up on the screen. "Where are you?" I ignored it and sent the snapshot of the pier to Dad and my friends. Mia texted back first, "Wow, beautiful." Then Dad's reply came. "Happy to see the piers coming along and even happier to know that you're out sightseeing." A tiny part of the weight lifted from my shoulders. It was a small victory, but wins seemed hard to come by these days, especially for the sea turtle. She was losing over and over, and until the lights at the beachcomber were turned off, I didn't see how she could ever triumph. I sighed to myself. With all the things bothering me, I really didn't need to be fretting about a turtle, too. But I couldn't stop thinking about her. It was at least 15 minutes before the next trolley came, and I was sweating buckets when I climbed aboard. I'd run out on Mom in the middle of a breakdown. As I slid into an open seat, I pushed away thoughts of the sea turtle and went back to dreading the jam I was headed for. What was I thinking heading off on the trolley alone? My grandparents probably freaked when they came home and Mom was in tears and I wasn't there. Sure enough, when the trolley rolled up to the stop near my grandparents' beach house, the whole family was out looking for me. Mom must have met them in the driveway because Grandpa was holding his car keys and the donut box was in Lainey's hands. No doubt they'd never made it inside. I ducked my head as soon as my feet hit the sidewalk. Lainey spotted me right away and shot toward me, carrying the box of donuts in her arm. She uttered a breathless stream of words. Liv, I got you a key lime. What are you doing, Liv? Why weren't you there? Where did you go?" Before I could think of an answer, she was tromping through the same flower bed I'd gone through. Mr. Emerson and the stranger were still outside, and the well-dressed man didn't seem at all happy to see his hibiscus plants getting crushed again. "Hey!" he called, then stormed in, his face reddening as he flew toward Lainey in the flower bed. But when he saw the rest of my family standing a short distance away, he halted abruptly, straightened his tie, and combed his fingers through his hair. It was too late. Lainey had already been spooked. She shrieked in surprise, threw the donut box up in the air. Time seemed to stand still as the box rose. The lid flew open. A dozen donuts shot out across the neatly trimmed grass. The black cloud of birds that descended was nearly instantaneous. It was as if they'd been circling the island, just waiting for a little girl to toss donuts up in the air and for the chance to swoop in. Seagulls and sandpipers gobbled down candy toppings. They pecked holes in the frosting and threw pieces of spongy cake high and caught them with their beaks. My sister scurried to her feet and tried to chase the birds away. She charged at one. It floated a few feet out of reach as another one dove in. My mom and the stranger reached Lainey first. Mom helped my sister scoop the donut remains back into the box, and the man found more success than Lainey had in shooing away the birds. By the time I got to them, there was nothing I could do but feel terrible for being the cause of such a ruckus. Nevertheless, relief flooded Mom's eyes when she saw me. "Liv, where did you go?" My mouth hung open, wanting to tell her about my solo ride on the trolley and how I was old enough to take on more responsibility, but that I was also sorry because I knew I should have said something instead of leaving her there in the pantry. Before I could gather my wits, though, the man was speaking over me. "Hi there, ladies. I'm Frank Shaw, the new owner of the Beachcomber. Say you three must be sisters." As he said this, he cocked his chiseled cleft chin at my mother and raised one eyebrow. I frowned. This was Mr. Shaw, as in the Mr. Shaw who oversaw all decisions regarding the lighting of the inn. "I'm Olivia," I said, and thrust out my hand. "This is my mom and my sister Lainey." Mr. Shaw shook my hand but kept his eye on my mother. "Remarkable genes in the family. Beautiful bone structure." Mom blushed and I said, "Our thanks," while wondering how to shift the conversation toward the sea turtle. My grandparents joined the circle then, and Mr. Shaw said, "Wow, 3 generations of exquisite women," then let out a low whistle. "You're a lucky man," he said to my grandfather. Grandpa narrowed his eyes. Mr. Shaw didn't seem to be making a good impression on me either. But I smiled anyway because I knew I'd need Mr. Shaw's cooperation to get the lights turned off. I hate to ask this, but could you please tell the little ones to kindly stay out of my flower beds? The grounds were in dire need of maintenance when I acquired the property. He threw a sidelong glance at Aiden's grandfather. We've brought things up to a much higher standard, but it's not easy to keep it there. The straight line of Mr. Emerson's mouth twitched beneath his mustache. Then, as if he couldn't stand to be there another minute, Mr. Emerson turned and walked away. Grandma nodded her head. "Of course," she said in reply to Mr. Shaw, and took Laney by the hand. "Come on, honey." Then she shot an expectant look. "Olivia, I'll speak to you inside." Getting scolded by Grandma wasn't something I was looking forward to, but even more than that, I didn't want to go inside and miss my opportunity to tell Mr. Shaw about the harmful lights his inn was casting onto the beach. Laney sniveled, and I kept her eyes glued to the colorful mess in the crumpled donut box. Laney sniveled and kept her eyes glued to the colorful mess in the crumpled donut box, and Grandma guided her forward. Mom turned to follow. I steeled myself to speak. I started. But then Mr. Shaw grabbed Mom by the elbow. "Hey," he said, voice as smooth as silk. "If you'd like, I can show you around one of the units at the inn. Maybe you and your daughters will be interested in a long-term lease. Might be nice having your own space, but still living next door to the folks. Am I right?" Mom smiled pensively. Well, I thought she was just being polite, but what if she wasn't? What if she really was considering moving to one of the units at the Beachcomber? Anna Maria Island was one of my favorite places in the world. It wasn't where I wanted to live year-round, though. I would miss the mountains and the snow and my friends, and most of all, Dad. He'd never be able to move here with his job at the university. No matter how worried I was about the turtle, the firecrackers going off inside my head were telling me to get my mother out of there and fast. "Mom," I said, gently tugging on the same bare arm Mr. Shaw had snatched hold of a few seconds before. "Shouldn't we check on Laney? She was pretty upset." "I'll think about it," she told Mr. Shaw. "It was nice meeting you." "Likewise," he said in a manner that made Mom's cheeks redden again and made me want to gag. I glanced around as Mom and I made our way back to the house. Never one to litter, Grandpa had been lingering behind. As he retrieved the box and the remaining donut crumbs, his gaze flickered to the sign of the trolley stop and then to me. His warm, brown eyes shone with understanding. The world felt too big in that moment, but I found myself nodding and softly smiling in his direction. With Mom in front and Grandpa behind, there was no way for me to pull Mr. Shaw aside. I would have to talk to him about the light when the timing was better. Let's read on just a few more pages. Chapter 7. Each year, hundreds of thousands of sea turtles are caught in fishing nets and on hooks. Since turtles must reach the surface to breathe, many drown once caught. So that's the information it's giving us about sea turtles at the beginning of chapter 7. Mom stopped not 1 foot inside the doorway. Laney didn't give her a chance to move deeper inside the house. My sister had fallen to pieces as soon as she'd entered and was openly mourning the loss of donuts. Mom rested her hand on Laney's shoulder. Grandma was beside them both with her arms crossed. I shrank with my back against the door. I felt bad for Laney, but she was getting enough attention and I had things to do. I'd missed my opportunity to confront Mr. Shaw, but when I had another one, I wanted to be prepared. That meant planning out what to say, maybe even putting together a science fair-worthy project, facts, figures, photos. Laney was the list maker, but she had nothing on me when it came to informational presentations. I was antsy to get started, but my family was creating a roadblock. Still, I didn't want to be rude, especially with Laney rightfully upset. Grandpa raised his eyebrows at me sympathetically and cleared his throat. "We know this has been a trying morning for everyone, but if you don't mind, we would like to get through," he said. But Grandma started, her eyes flickering to me with accusation. Grandpa raised his hand like a stop sign. One crisis at a time, dear. Let's tend to Lainey first. Grandma considered the tears streaming down Lainey's face and relented. She and Mom scooched to one side so I could get by. My foot had just brushed the bottom step, and I thought I was all clear, all but in the clear, when the front door whooshed open once more. Surprise! My Aunt Michelle stepped in the foyer with two dark-haired boys trailing behind her. The mob has arrived. My aunt deemed herself the mob after the twins were born and had been trying to convince my mom to call herself the Mog ever since. Mog for Mom of Girls and Mob for Mom of Boys. Mom laughs a fake, hollow laugh every time it comes up. She'll never go for it. Mob, on the other hand, has stuck. Not only that, has extended to include Aunt Michelle's entire family, and the nickname is more fitting than I think she ever intended. Seeing the mob standing in the doorway, my chest felt tight, like all the air had been sucked out of it again. I should have guessed they would show up. At least once every summer, they overlapped our vacation, making the beach house seem cramped and small with so many people living under one roof. Dad and I had always planned most of our excursions for while they were in town. Aunt Michelle was holding a suitcase, and Cisco and Diego were each wearing a backpack. It's a 4-hour drive from their condo in Miami to here. They must have left home at the crack of dawn and obviously planned on staying for at least a few days. We're here for 2 whole weeks. Terrific, right? Aunt Michelle announced as if reading my thoughts. Angelo is tied up with work. He sends his best, but we were going nuts at home. Right, boys? Summer break. And there's nothing we need more than to be together right now. She held my mom's gaze and said, right, sis? That was a lot of rights in one statement, but that was my Aunt Michelle for you. She wasn't asking if anyone agreed with her. She was telling them they had to. She had never allowed any room for opposition, which was what worried me the most about her campaign to make us move. My heart pounded in my ears. This was the last thing I needed. How could I prepare to persuade Mr. Shaw with the mob around? Mom pulled her face into a strained smile and nodded her head. It's great to see you, Michelle. Thanks for driving all this way. Everyone, minus me, since I had one foot up the stairs already, launched into a round of hugs. The twins quickly dodged embraces and squirmed out of the circle. They made a break for it, and Lainey took off after them, all covered in icing. Lainey, Grandma admonished, get back here. You're a mess. Grandpa took Grandma's hand in his. Oh, it'll clean. But this, her cousins being here, is good for her spirit. Lainey adored Cisco and Diego. The twins turned 3 last month. When you added their ages together, they equaled Lainey in number of years lived and exuded twice as much energy. The donut disaster apparently forgotten, my sister was all smiles and laughter as she disappeared into the living room. Seeing what Grandpa said to be true, Grandma squeezed his hand in return and let Lainey go. Meanwhile, Aunt Michelle was cornering Mom. She splayed a hand across her chest and shook her head indignantly. It wasn't hard to imagine what she was saying. Aunt Michelle and Dad had never really gotten along. She had to be bursting with grievances against him that the divorce freed her to share. That gnawed at me. I felt angry on his behalf. But watching her pin my mother down the way she was, it occurred to me that the mob's sudden arrival might not be all bad. Aunt Michelle would keep Mom occupied, and the twins would keep Lainey out of my hair. Maybe they would forget all about my disappearance this morning, and I could focus on preparing to confront Mr. Shaw. We're going to stop right there in the middle of page 71, and we'll begin tomorrow with the words, I quietly slipped away. Thank you so much, 4th grade champions. I hope you have a really good day. Take care of yourselves.